You started another diet and yet again ends in failure. What do you do and why is that happening? Welcome to another episode of Beast of Burden. My name is Paul Bassett. I run Hounds of Health here in Wandsworth, London, helping busy professionals get fit, take charge of their health, and ultimately get the result that they've been wanting. Today, I thought I'd talk about one of the most common frustrations that anyone we talk to has experienced. So typically when someone approaches us, it's because they've tried so many different things. They've tried their best, they've worked hard, the effort's been high, but they've not got a result. And they're not sure why it's happening. They feel like they're eating well. They feel like they've done the exercise. They have a high step count. The food quality looks good on paper, but nothing's changing. The needle isn't moving. And the question has to be asked, well, if I'm doing all this work and nothing's happening, why even bother? And often that's the case. People don't even bother. They've tried so many times, they've failed so many times, and they look at themselves and go, I'm putting all this effort in and nothing's happening. And it's really common. I've been there. It's probably something you've experienced in the past. Maybe you've solved it, maybe you haven't. If you're working with us, then we're solving it. But what do? Do you just give up? Or do you find another strategy? And today I'm going to take you through my protocol to help you evaluate how to start moving the needle, trying to work out where the problems are, what could be the missing link, the cog that's not been put in, and to add that spark back into the journey. Because I just got off the phone to someone and they weren't motivated, and everything they told me gave me pretty good insight into why they should be motivated, but they weren't motivated. And it was because they've got a history of failure. So let's talk about some scenarios. I think it's probably the best place to begin. The first scenario is you've started a fitness plan, say January, and in that fitness plan you thought, I'm going to work on my diet, I'm going to start a fitness plan, I'm going to get a gym membership, and I'm going to lose 10 pounds or 10 kilos. And you set yourself a goal of doing it by, say beginning of March. And here, beginning of March, nothing's changed. You're exactly where you started, or the changes have been so small, it hardly feels like all the effort was worth it. Now, this is very, very common. It's the reason the whole of the fitness industry exists. It's one of the reasons people do things like Weight Watchers, Slim Fast. You're searching on the internet for the next supplement. It's often why people do Ozempic. Now, I've seen a lot of people on Ozempic and not everyone gets a result. And I've got a YouTube video on how we work with people on the GLP-1s. And if you're on that, so definitely look at that. They can move the needle. But of course, sometimes you're taking this, they're expensive, and you've only lost a couple of pounds. So I like to have a system. I think where there's a lack of results, it's often a lack of a system, and then importantly, a lack of action around that. If anything defines this business, defines Hounds of Health, defines my approach, my team's approach, and also defines most people's health journey when they get it right, is that they become a person of action. So they start taking action. They start thinking about how they go from inaction to being a person with momentum, because it's momentum that will overcome motivation. How you take action is key. I just got off the phone to a lady who's got a young baby, 6 months old, and I asked her about why she's not motivated, because she said she wasn't motivated despite having a confidence of number 1. Okay, so confidence was 10, I feel amazing. I said, where are you on that scale? And she said 1. So, I can see why she feels unmotivated, because she feels so down. But she's tried a lot of things and nothing's changing. Nothing's moving the needle. So the thing I like to do is to get someone to take action, okay? Every time you step through the door in this studio, every time someone makes a decision to book in a phone call, every time someone lifts more weight, they end up making a vote for that person they want to be. They start feeling empowered. They're starting to build momentum, start to build a sense of purpose and control, and they're the one in the driving seat. So a lot of what I'm doing and a lot of the things that I put in front of people are to reduce the decision fatigue and to increase the ability to take action. I think where a lot of people go wrong when it comes to fitness programs is they do too much right from the start. They overwhelm themselves with a massive lifestyle change. And yes, sometimes you do need a shock, and I don't like the word shocking the system to get fit. That doesn't work. I think you've got to work with your body. But sometimes it's got, even small changes in lifestyle can feel like a massive flip. Going from being a healthy person to just walking into a gym is a massive change in direction for some people. But if you give yourself too many things, you try and implement too many changes at once without the right skill set in place, you're going to be overwhelmed. So imagine you're just learning guitar. You take up the guitar, you book yourself your first gig, you start being a master about how to take a guitar apart, put it together again. You try and become a really good sound engineer. You try and understand chords, try and learn songs. You try and work out the best string gauge. You will try and work out whether you're going to finger pick, play classical, play jazz. Am I going to learn the Rolling Stones, or do I want to listen to heavy metal? You give yourself too many things. You've got to simplify things, and that's often where someone with experience, like a music teacher, might say, just focus on this. I'm going to give you this. You're going to come back next week and you've learned it, or you're going to have tried it, or you show me what you've done. So I think the first things first is, once you've established your goal, okay, you've got to then work out the best way to start stacking those skills. Because each time you stack a skill, you stack a win. And it takes time to stack skills and change habits. You're not going to suddenly drink 2.5 liters of water, do 10,000 steps, do 3 training sessions, lift heavy, eat high protein, eat in a calorie deficit, add more vegetables, go organic, do Paleolithic days, low carb days, book a half marathon. These things aren't just going to happen at once, okay? But they could happen in the future if you give yourself the right time scale. So the first thing I think that stops people getting results is that they give themselves unrealistic timelines. I've said this multiple times on this podcast, which is people don't fail because of their goals. They don't give themselves unrealistic goals. They give themselves unrealistic timelines. So rather than just having this big, long, massive goal that's too close, give yourself the big goal, but then break it down into milestones. Each time you achieve a milestone, it should be realistic, and the milestones should be informed by what you've already done. So think of your first 2 to 4 weeks as a sense of gaining pace. So once you've done those 2 to 4 weeks, you can look back and say, look, I've achieved 1 kilo fat loss in 1 month. I think I can do that again in month 2. That's given us a sense of pace. Now that pace may increase as we start nailing skills and habits and getting better at them, but certainly a program minimum will be based on what you've done before. So rather than looking ahead, which feels massive, it's Mount Everest, look back, see how far you've come. Look at the distance traveled. That's going to keep you on and stop you, because sometimes people quit programs before they start working because they haven't quite given it enough time for it's like the join the dots approach. If you just join a dot here and a dot there and a dot there, you're not going to see the picture. You've got to let all the dots get joined up before you see that picture. And it's the same with a program. Give it enough time to do the basics and eventually you'll suddenly click. But that takes time, okay? So what are the things I think are essential? Well, firstly, they're the things that you're willing, able, and interested in taking action on, okay? Sometimes people will sign up to our program, or they'll sign up and express interest to a program that involves a lot of nutrition. But once I get on the phone to them, the most important thing for them to focus on is just showing up. And then actually the diet is secondary. So think about what steps you need in place in order to achieve your goal. The first thing may be, I just need to turn up to a session. And as I've mentioned on, I think the last one on accountability, I don't tend to have great diet when I'm not training. So get that in place. I think personally showing up to the gym, physically being somewhere, doing some exercise is the catalyst for better decisions elsewhere. Okay, so you firstly need to find a routine that's not overwhelming for your time management, that you can do 2 to 3 times a week. You consistently do that for many, many weeks, and that has a progressive overload feature, so it becomes more challenging over time, okay? Once you've done that, I think it's important to then start thinking about what else would I like to change? Well, if body composition is a big priority, then we have to do something around diet. For me, the first thing someone needs to be doing is bringing awareness to the problem. So something like a food diary that's honest. Now, there's some videos out there of the fact that most people lie on food diaries. Best thing to do is just take some photos of everything you eat. Everything, like a teaspoon of peanut butter or honey, you have that. Double check take a picture of the amount of fat you add to a meal. Don't forget about the oil you put in the pan before you fry an egg. All those things need to be recorded. And then when you see that, you can start seeing patterns. And you might want to focus on eating 3 regular meals a day. That might be the first quick win. So really, once we've got that information, we can then start making decisions based on where we need to put our energy. And often, it's not about the content of what we do, it is about the structure of what we do. So rather than thinking, you're going to eat this meal plan, I think, is this person managing their time, preparing their food and eating regularly enough to apply a more systemized approach? And if they're not, then I would like to see them do a couple of weeks of just eating 3 meals a day, because I can give them the perfect plan that they don't do, okay? So already you can see that most people's goals need to be elongated a little bit. And actually, we're making haste by going slowly, okay? So the reason we do that is that you will gain momentum. So imagine month 1, we become consistent. We've trained twice a week or 3 times a week. Month 2, we brought awareness to our food. We're tracking our food. We're bringing awareness. We're not losing that awareness. And by the end of month 2, we have a meal plan that we're following. That meal plan might not even be calorie controlled at first. We do a month of just prepping food. Then we start thinking about adding something like protein targets. Okay, you've got to hit 120 grams of protein a day, 160, whatever your goal. And then on top of it, we might be thinking about having a calorie target. On top of that, we might be starting to think about what is the movement that someone's doing outside the gym. Is that enough? And that may take 4 to 5 months, but in 4 to 5 months, just by virtue of nailing a couple of things that are starting to stack on top, because you're not stopping your training when you start working on a diet, you're just stacking a new skill on top. So you keep practicing that one, put a new one on, make mistakes, have a bit of play, stack a new one. And before you know it, you've got maybe 3 to 4 solid habits that now you just need to do for enough time and get better at. And really, that's the essence of getting momentum. I think if you go in with these short-term challenges, yes, they do work. And sometimes they capture someone in the moment and you feel like, wow, I can do whatever. This is the time. But we all know, because we're all adults, that it probably will take longer. So if your challenge and your thing does not take into account that it has to be replicated over time, you're probably going to fail it, because you're going to say, what is sustainable? Okay, so let's build those skills over time. And really, where we come in is we're not doing the work for them. I'm not going to give anyone I work with a piece of information that they can't find out on the internet. But what I will do is structure it and listen to their scenario and give them the advice and the accountability and the follow-up and the sense of belief, and also maybe a slightly better structured and timed both meal plan, training, etc., than you would get somewhere else, that allows someone to start truly believing that they have control over this scenario rather than being the victim of the events surrounding them. So if you are struggling, if this is something that on a yearly basis you feel like you're failing in your diet, break it down into those areas, start looking at what's really important, moving more, progressive strength training, bringing awareness to your diet, getting the right timeline, celebrating the progress you've already made and using it to gauge your pace. Don't overwhelm yourself with too many things to do. Just focus on a few and then keep nailing it. Have some way of measuring it, okay? I've done podcasts in the past about tracking. Tracking is so important because you can't see what's going wrong. Most people don't track well. They say, I eat pretty well. Oh yes, I'm definitely doing my movement. I run a lot. And actually, when you actually get someone to sit down and do it as said, they suddenly realize that they weren't doing it. Um, so often what you think you're doing, unless there's proof of it, and everyone I've seen do a really fundamental change is in some way got involved in the data. You know, there'll no doubt be people who just put the finger in the wind and hope for the best and it works out amazing. But for most people, they're tracking something, whether it's the food, the step count, the training, they're tracking the weights they're using, they're tracking their attendances, they're tracking their calories, they're tracking their protein. They're making intentional choices around their food and being very aware of the meals they're eating and following a system. I don't think for the average person, flying by the seat of your pants is going to work. And I think most people, because you've never been taught what the standard is, flying by your seat of your pants can actually, there's different degrees of flying by the seat of your pants. There's absolute chaos, and then there's slightly all right, we're gliding a bit, just hope we don't hit a big gust of wind, okay? We're gonna take away that. We're gonna be a jet fighter, okay? So that's my approach. Obviously, I can expand on it. If you do work with us and we break this down even more, I hope that didn't come across too much rambling, but I think there's some salient points there that you can walk away with and give you some insight. And look, if you have any questions, just ask me, put it in the comments, happy to answer them, or email us. And if you're in the area, if you're in Wandsworth in London, you need to come down here and meet us and train with us.